car can become immortal and still fail as a business. That is the contradiction at the center of DeLorean. The shape survived, the doors survived, the stainless steel body survived. The image became part of pop culture. But the company behind it barely lived long enough to sell the car it had spent years promising. Years later, cinema would turn the DeLorean into a time machine. But the cruel irony is that the company itself had already run out of time. The DeLorean Motor Company was founded by John DeLorean, a former General Motors executive who was not entering the car industry from the outside. He came from the center of it. At GM, he had helped shape cars like the Pontiac GTO and Firebird, and he carried the reputation of a corporate rebel, stylish, ambitious, and impatient with the rules of Detroit. That mattered because DeLorean was not just selling a car. He was selling the idea that one brilliant insider could escape the old system and build something better. The company was part automobile startup, part personal brand, part industrial promise. Investors, dealers, governments, workers, and customers were all buying into the same story. Detroit had become too conservative, and John DeLorean had the vision to create the sports car of the future. The product was the DMC-12, a two-seat sports car aimed mainly at American buyers who wanted something distinctive, modern, and different from ordinary performance cars. It would make money in the traditional way: build cars, ship them through a dealer network, and sell enough volume at a high enough price to support the company behind them. On paper, the idea had power. The car looked unlike almost anything else on the road. It had gull-wing doors. It had a brushed stainless steel body. It had a low futuristic profile designed to make it feel less like a normal car and more like a statement. This was not a vehicle built to disappear in traffic. It was built to be noticed. That was DeLorean's first real advantage. Before the company had scale, before it had trust, before it had a long operating history, it had attention. The car was instantly recognizable. The founder was instantly marketable. The story was easy to understand. A famous executive leaves General Motors, builds his own company, and tries to create the car the old industry would never build. For a young automaker, that kind of attention is valuable. Cars are not just mechanical products. They are identity products. People buy sports cars for aspiration, status, rebellion, and future. DeLorean understood that. The design gave the company a weapon that many startups never get: memory. But a memorable car is not the same thing as a durable car company. The deeper challenge was that DeLorean had to build almost everything at once. He needed a car that worked. He needed a factory. He needed trained workers. He needed suppliers. He needed dealers. He needed financing. He needed demand strong enough to absorb production. And he needed all of this before the patience of governments, investors, and customers ran out. That is where the business became fragile. The factory was not built in Detroit. It was built in Dunmurry, near Belfast, in Northern Ireland. This was not just an industrial choice. It was a political and economic decision. Northern Ireland needed jobs. The region had unemployment, industrial decline, and deep social tension. A new car factory promised modern manufacturing, international attention, and a workforce that was expected to rise into the thousands. For the government, DeLorean was not only a business proposition, it was a regional development project. Public support could turn into employment, and employment could turn into political value. For DeLorean, public money helped close the gap between ambition and capital. Between 1978 and 1982, government assistance for the project reached about £77 million. The factory was tied to a plan that aimed for up to 30,000 cars a year. Those numbers made the project feel serious, but they also made it heavy. The company was no longer just testing whether one sports car could find buyers. It had become a symbol of renewal, a public investment, and a production machine built around very large expectations. That kind of scale can make sense once a company has proved its product, its costs, and its demand. But DeLorean was trying to reach industrial scale while still fighting the basic problems of a new car launch. The same visibility that helped the company attract funding also created pressure. Delays became political. Compromises became dangerous. Every month mattered. The company had to move fast because the promise had already been sold, and the car that reached the road was not as strong as the legend that surrounded it. The DMC-12 had the look. It had the drama, it had the kind of design language that made people turn their heads. But making cars is an unforgiving business. A vehicle is not judged only by the first photograph or the showroom reaction. It is judged by reliability, build quality, performance, delivery, warranty claims, dealer confidence, and word of mouth after the excitement fades. That was the hidden weakness. DeLorean had built a product with the visual power of a supercar, but the company behind it did not yet have the operational maturity of a major automaker. The stainless steel body made the car memorable, but it did not automatically make production simple. The gull-wing doors made the car iconic, but they also raised expectations for flawless engineering. The futuristic image created desire, but it also made disappointment more expensive. When a car promises the future, ordinary quality problems feel like betrayal. This is where the mechanism of failure becomes clear. The company had not merely launched a car, it had launched a high-expectation machine. The product had to justify its image, the factory had to justify public support, production had to justify the workforce, and sales had to justify all of it. But production and demand did not align. By the end of 1981, the Dunmurry factory had produced about 7,500 cars, but the company had sold only about 3,000. Inventory became a warning sign. For any automaker, unsold vehicles are dangerous. They tie up cash, they weaken dealer confidence, they force discounts, they turn growth into pressure. For DeLorean, the problem was worse because the company did not have decades of profits, multiple models, or a large balance sheet to absorb the shock. Established car companies can survive a weak model. A one-car startup cannot easily survive a weak launch. The timing made the weakness harder to hide. The early 1980s were a punishing environment for an expensive discretionary product. High interest rates and recessionary pressure made financing harder and big purchases less attractive. A customer who might have loved the car still had to justify buying it. Dealers still had to move inventory. Investors still had to believe more money would produce a turnaround. DeLorean needed confidence precisely when the market was reducing confidence. At first, the company's ambition had looked like courage. Now, it looked like exposure. The factory, the workforce, the dealer expectations, the public money, and the media attention all depended on one vehicle becoming commercially strong very quickly. There was no quiet version of this failure. The company had been built too publicly. In February 1982, the Northern Ireland Company went into receivership. Production did not survive much longer. The factory that had been promoted as a source of jobs and industrial hope was shut down within months. The DeLorean dream had not slowly aged into decline. It went from symbol of the future to financial emergency almost overnight. Then came the scandal most people remember. In October 1982, John DeLorean was arrested in a government sting operation connected to a cocaine trafficking deal. The case became a media spectacle, and it permanently changed how the public understood the company's collapse. He was later acquitted in 1984 after the defense argued entrapment. But the arrest should not be treated as the whole explanation. It was dramatic, but it was not the entire business mechanism. The company was already in receivership before that arrest. The factory was already in crisis. The finances were already broken. The market had already failed to absorb the car at the speed the structure required. The scandal did not create the fragility. It destroyed whatever confidence remained around it. A startup automaker cannot survive on design alone. It survives on belief long enough to become operationally real. Investors must believe the next round is worth funding. Dealers must believe customers will keep coming. Customers must believe parts and service will exist. Governments must believe public money will produce public value. Workers must believe the factory has a future. Once that belief breaks, the business can collapse faster than the product's reputation. The tragedy of DeLorean is that the company did many things right at the level of narrative. It understood differentiation. It understood founder-led branding. It understood the power of a physical product that could become a symbol. It built something visually unforgettable in an industry where most new entrants disappear without a trace. But it confused the power of a symbol with the stability of a company. A business cannot live only in the moment of attention. It has to convert attention into reliable demand, reliable production, reliable margins, and reliable trust. DeLorean had attention before it had stability. It had scale before it had proof. It had a factory before it had a mature operating machine. It had an icon before it had a business strong enough to capture the value of that icon. That is why the ending is so strange. The company died, but the product did not disappear. The DMC-12 became more famous after the business collapsed than it had ever been while the company was alive. In 1985, Back to the Future turned the DeLorean into a time machine, and the car's silhouette became part of global pop culture. The film did not save the company. It arrived too late for that. What it saved was the myth, and that myth has been extraordinarily durable. People still recognize the doors, they still recognize the stainless steel, they still recognize the shape. The car became the kind of object companies dream of creating. Instantly identifiable, emotionally charged, impossible to replace with a generic substitute. But DeLorean Motor Company no longer existed to capture that value. That is the business lesson hidden beneath the stainless steel. A product can become iconic and still fail as an enterprise. Cultural immortality does not pay suppliers. It does not fund working capital. It does not fix quality control. It does not solve inventory. It does not keep a factory open after cash and trust run out. DeLorean built something the world remembered, but it did not build the operating system that could survive long enough to own the memory. The car became a time machine. The company ran out of time.